Alright guys, so tonight is a classic kind of a night, because this thing is going to take a while. So, sit back, relax, and we're going to have some fun today talking about everything you need to know for your Cedar Point trip in 2022. This thing is going to be a monster. And that's a good thing, because you need to know a lot of stuff about how to plan your Cedar Point trip for 2022. So, I hope you're ready. I hope you're excited. By the way, this is delicious. Cheap, but delicious. And, let's go! Now, like I said, this is going to be a really long topic-driven video. If you are not up for a really long video and watching through the whole thing, I understand that. That's completely fine. I will have markers down below for all the different topics that you may be interested in. So check it out. I'm here to try to help you plan the absolute best trip that you possibly can. And I'm also here to answer questions. So if you have additional questions outside of the things that I talk about in this video, please ask them down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. And just go ahead right now and press that like button, because there's going to be something here that's going to be helpful. I swear. If you watch the entire thing, there's going to be a lot of information here, and I think it is going to be particularly helpful in that case. So let's go. First, I got to shore myself up. It's time. Also, this channel does give you tips and tricks on how to get the most out of your Cedar Point days, and not just Cedar Point, but also other theme parks too. Cedar Point is kind of my bread and butter on this channel, though. We will be taking some trips to Kings Island also, but all the theories that I'll be talking about today will be tested extensively during the year. So you're going to be able to see all of this happen over and over and over again on different days at different times of the year, from fall to summer to the early springtime. So if you have any questions at all about any of it, you're gonna see it in action, which should help even more. That's another reason why you should definitely subscribe if you have not subscribed yet to this channel, because like I said, we're here to help you plan the best trip that you possibly can. All right, the very first thing that you got to figure out when it comes to your theme park trip is how long are you wanting to stay? And in order to do that, I mean, really, you have to answer a couple questions on top of that. So how often can you go? And how close are you? If you're close, like I live 2 hours away from Cedar Point. Well, I have 2.5 hours away from Cedar Point, 3 hours away from Kings Island. So 2.5 hours for me, I can make it fairly frequently. Now, that doesn't mean everyone can, but for me and my own situation, I'm able to make it to Cedar Point pretty frequently. But not everybody can do that. A lot of people have work commitments. I'm a teacher, so in the summers, I'm scot-free. I mean, there's stuff I need to do for school, but I can do those on a day when I'm not at the parks and go in and organize my space and do all that kind of stuff. But in the summers, am able to take a lot of time to go to Cedar Point. So of course that's different for every single person, but how many times do you think it's reasonable for you to come to the parks in the year? That's definitely a factor in how long you're going to want to stay there. If you are only coming one time, which is kind of the assumption that I'm going to go with, I recommend that you would stay between 3 and 5 days. And there's a number of things that you could do, but we're going to kind of stick with that 3-day time period for the remainder of this video. The reason why I say that is because you could have 1 full day for the water park, 1 full day for the theme park, and of course after the water park you can come into the theme park too, because the water park usually closes at around 5 or 6, something like that, so you'd still have several hours to ride a few more rides, and then you could have 1 full day just of rest and relaxation in between the 2 days. Of course, adding other days, you can add as many rest days as you want, or you could add as many additional theme park days to just take some of the stress off of you having to ride every single big ride. I mean, a lot of us put that pressure on ourselves to ride every single ride if we are at Cedar Point on that day. I know, like last year, I went like 30 times, and I still, every time I was at Cedar Point, felt that pressure on me, like I want to ride everything. So you don't have to do that, but a lot of us feel that pressure. Sorry about my heater too. I'm going to try to edit it as much as I can in post to get rid of that background noise, but I mean, it's Indiana in the winter. I just turned it down, so hopefully it won't be on as often, but it does get loud whenever my heater comes on, so I apologize for that sound in advance here. Another thing to think about is, what kind of pass do you want to have? Do you want to have a 1-day pass? You can get a 2-day pass, or you could get a gold pass or a platinum pass, and we'll talk more about that later. But each one of those is going to affect how often you come. If you have a pass for all year long, then you're more likely to come all year long. But if you don't have a pass for all year long, then you're going to be more likely to come one time. So just put a pin in that for right now. We'll talk about that more later on in this video. Now, one thing to think about also is, when do you want to visit? And a lot of that has to do with what kinds of things do you want to do. Are you a water park kind of a person? If you're a water park kind of a person, you got to come in the summer. You got to go July, August, sometime around then when it's the hottest, and you're going to have the most fun at the water parks. Are you a beach kind of a person? Then you're going to also want something a little bit warmer. Do you like the festivals? You might want to come at the very beginning of the year and do the Frontier Festival. Or are you a really big Halloween kind of a person? Then you may want to come for Halloweekends. There are some different times of year that you may want to come for specific events. This last year we had the 150th celebration that had an awesome parade and a big show at the end of the night, kind of to cap off the evening. Those are all things that you will want to take into consideration. But beyond that, you'll also want to take the time of year and the type of weather that you're going to have. Weather in the Great Lakes area, just in general, is kind of a little bit unpredictable. That's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. It both means that you could have a day that is both cool at the very beginning of the day, rainy and in the middle of it, and then incredibly nice at the end of it. Or it could just be a rain show for the entire day. You never really know what's going to happen. It could be a day that the weatherman says it's going to be I don't know, 55 degrees, which we did see last year, and I wore a big hoodie, and it was the hottest day that day, and actually that happened twice. Bring something that you can change into, or bring a button-up shirt that you can unbutton. Those are your two options, I guess. Another thing to keep in mind is that sometimes Cedar Point does operate during school time. And during school time, of course, you're going to have a lot more school students that are there. You're also going to have a fewer workers, which means things operate at a little bit less of a peak performance kind of a situation. So when you come in early May, or if you come in October, you are always dealing with having fewer days that the park is open, and also having a lot more people there, because kids can only come on the weekends, and often the parks are only open on the weekends during those times of year. So you do have higher crowds, and you also have fewer workers, which means for kind of the mass peak of having long lines and things like that. Now, there are a couple times that are really slow. This last year, the week between regular season and Halloweekends was incredible. That weekend was incredibly slow. My best friend Nathan and his kids and my daughter all went that weekend, and we had a blast. We were able to ride like all the rides we possibly would have wanted in that time, because we were able to get on rides really fast, because it was kind of an in-between seasons kind of a time. I don't know exactly why that's the case. Maybe it's just because everyone's just gotten into school, and then there isn't any special event happening yet, so everyone's still waiting for Halloweekends. But man, those days were peak performance days, so you should definitely consider coming the week between Halloweekends starting and the regular summer season. Also, Thursdays for Halloweekends. This last year, Halloweekends was open on Thursdays, and I was able to go a handful of times right after school. Right after I got done teaching, I would leave at 3:30 and go to Halloweekends and hang out there for the remainder of the day. I mean, I'd get there basically for opening and then leave. Those days were awesome. Lines were incredibly low. It was a great time to be able to hang out at Cedar Point at that time. Now, like I said, some people are close, some people are far, and those words are kind of interchangeable for different amounts of space. So if you are close enough that you feel you can get to Cedar Point and then drive back home in the evening, more power to you. After spending time in the parks, 2.5 hours for me is perfectly fine for me to go home and get home at 2 o'clock in the morning. For a lot of people, it probably is not. So if you are not fine with taking that 2.5 hours to get back home, you're going to want to get a hotel. And getting a hotel is pretty easy in Sandusky. There are a lot of them. You do have a couple of different types. The first type is a Cedar Point hotel. There are like 4 different ones. Lighthouse Point, the Express Hotel that is right on the main drag on the way into Cedar Point. And then you also have Hotel Breakers, which is right there on the beach, and Castaway Bay, which is a little bit further down the main drag. Those are all hotels owned by Cedar Point. They do offer some great experiences, although I have never been in to Castaway Bay at all because it was not open this last year. I don't even think it was open the year before that either. But at that point, I didn't even know what it was. Cedar Point hotels will often give you perks of some sort. For a lot of those Cedar Point hotels, they will give you platinum passes, essentially. So you're treated like a platinum pass member when you come into the parks. So they don't actually give you platinum passes, but you're able to get that early entry. You're also able to get some discounts or things like that. Depends on the year and it depends on what they offer. But they do come with some perks, so that may be worthwhile to consider when booking your trip. The other ones are, you kind of have the commercial Sandusky hotels that would be like brands like Great Wolf Lodge, Kalahari, Super 8, Marriott, some different types of brands that are around, Holiday Inn. Those are around Cedar Point, so you can go with an established brand. Now, even in an established brand, that doesn't mean you're always going to get a consistent experience. And I do have some reviews of hotels in the area that are on my channel. I'll link them up above so that you can check them out, or down in the description, one or the other. So definitely go check those out if you are curious about what those hotels are like. There are also a plethora of mom and pop hotels, and I'm working my way through them. I'm going to work my way through them a little bit more this next year. But there was one standout that was really amazing, and it was in I want to say an island town, but it was about 20 minutes away. And it was a hotel that I loved. It was called, I think, the Island Inn. And again, I'll link that down below so that you can check out that review also. There was another mom and pop hotel that I stayed in that was vaguely terrifying, but also had some very nice people working in it. So I didn't hate the experience, but it also was kind of scary. And there was a train that sounded like it was going right through your room. Listen to that train. So again, I'll link that down below too, so that you can check those out and kind of get an idea of what kinds of hotels are in the Sandusky area. Those would be more mom and pop hotels that are owned by individual people. And quite honestly, I think those give you the most fun experience kinds of situations when you come to Cedar Point. Definitely the most memorable types of places to stay. Now remember, I said put a pin in the different kinds of passes that you can possibly get. Take that pin out right now. We're going to talk about different types of tickets that you can buy for your trip and what my recommendation is. You can buy a day pass, you can buy a 2-day pass, you can buy a gold pass or a platinum pass. And I would, for this 3-day suggestion that I'm talking about, I would recommend, if you can only come for 3 days during the year, I would recommend a 2-day park pass. That will get you into both the regular park and into Cedar Shores so that you can go to the water park. Or it would get you into 2 days of Cedar Point proper, where you can go experience all the coasters and you don't have to ride all 16 in one day. And that's going to be really, really good, especially if you are staying already at one of the hotels. If you're staying at Breakers or you're staying at Lighthouse, those are really good options for you, because you're also going to be given the distinction of being treated like a Platinum Pass member. So if you have a Platinum Pass, you get in early. So you would have those early entry points. Now, if you're staying in a mom and pop hotel, Platinum Pass, I think or Gold Pass, might be a little bit better. And so here's where it gets a little bit muddied. Platinum Pass and Gold Pass also will get you in as many days as you want. And generally, if you're in the park for 3 different days, that would be already the cost of a gold pass. The cost for a gold pass today, right at this very moment, is $135. The cost for 1 day at the park is $45. So $45, $90, $135. After 3 days, you're going to have paid the amount that you needed for that gold pass. So if you're planning to spend 3 days at the park, you might as well get the gold pass anyway, and then you get the benefits of being able to come in earlier. Now, a lot of Cedar Point fans are going to be mad at me for saying that, because they don't love the gold pass, but I mean, I gotta admit, it's a good deal. And if you want to come to Cedar Point, it is a good deal for you and your family, especially if you have a large family and you want to be able to get them all in. That is definitely the best, most cost-efficient way for you to do it. I'm with Nathan. You met him at the beginning of the year, so we're on our way right now. It does kind of seem like Cedar Point likes to route people who are coming to their parks from Highway 2 that goes right around Sandusky. It's a raised highway. You get onto Highway 250, which is not a raised highway. Then you turn right onto Butler Street, and then right again onto Grand Army of the Republic Highway. From there, then you go right into Cedar Point Drive, and it's a straight shot from that point. And that route takes you by all the main things. It takes you by several big restaurants, Starbucks, Chick-fil-A, and of course then it also takes you by Great Wolf Lodge, it takes you by Kalahari, it takes you by Walmart, and it takes you by Castaway Bay on your way, along with even Cedar Point's Express Hotel. So there are a lot of like landmarks right in that area. That's kind of the main way that generally they take you. Now, generally I go through downtown in order to get in, because I'm coming from the east anyway, and it just ends up kind of naturally routing me to go that way. It depends on where you're coming from and, of course, what your GPS tells you to do. But I will tell you that that way in the morning, the way that I just told you about Milan Road and Highway 2 and then Butler Street, all of those, and then especially Cedar Point Drive, those are all incredibly popular, just packed to the brim with people, especially in the mornings. And let's say especially like a half hour after Cedar Point opens, because most people get there to the parks after the parks do open. There's really no incredibly direct way to get to Cedar Point, no matter what. You kind of have to do a little bit of jogging. Cedar Point Drive is a straight shot all the way into Cedar Point onto the peninsula. That is quite a long drive, and that's a good thing. I definitely like the experience of going all the way across the water like that into Cedar Point. It's something you don't get at any other theme park. Probably the closest you would get to it would be going to Walt Disney World, where you actually have to cross a lagoon to get into Walt Disney World. But it does give you this separation from the rest of the world kind of a feeling. By the time you've crossed that large part of the lake, you feel like you're away from the rest of society, and it gives you a little bit of a feeling of separation and just like, okay, I can relax, I can hang out at Cedar Point. Of course, that's my viewpoint too, because I love Cedar Point. I'm sure not everyone feels the same, but definitely for me, it's my sweet spot. Now, when you are on Cedar Point Drive, stay to the left. One of the biggest mistakes I made last year was not staying to the left at some points. You go right past everyone if you are on the left. A lot of people feel like they have to be on the right side because the signs do say, like, for the theme park, stay to the right. So people get in the right lane and they'll just wait in this extremely long one person at a time line. If you get in the left lane, you fly straight down. And honestly, even if you wouldn't fly straight down, let's say the secret gets out to everyone, it's still going to be way faster than you having to wait, than everyone waiting in the right lane. If you have people using both the left and the right lane, it's still going to be faster. So just use the left lane and the right lane both, whichever one's shortest, hop in it and go. People naturally often go to the right anyway. And it seems to be a secret that nobody really knows about, that you got to get in that left lane and just keep going. Also, when you get to the front of it, you'll see the signs for the ticket booths to get into the parking lot to the right, and there's a whole bunch of them. And then you'll see like 3 to the left, and that says to go to the resort area. You can use those also. So if they're short, hop in them, get in as fast as you can. You still have access to the main parking lot and then also to the water park parking lot on the back of Cedar Point. So use both entrances and use both ticket booths. Don't be shy. Like I just touched on, there are essentially 3 different parking lots. There's the major main parking lot that's just massive. There is the water park parking lot that's at the back. And then there's also a parking lot to the side that's kind of an overflow parking lot, especially for the marina. Those are all ones that can be used. The marina is going to be less likely used, but it could be used potentially for someone who may want to go island hopping and needs to park to be able to stay there overnight and then go. Now, I haven't tested that, but that is an option, possibly. I've done some research into it, so we're going to test that this year and see what comes of it, because I'd kind of like to do some island hopping around Cedar Point this next year. Along with those 3 different parking lots, there are 4 different entrances. There are 2 entrances on the beach. There's, of course, the main entrance, and then there is the entrance by the marina that you can go in. All right, Cedar Point's map definitely has a few very specific spots in it. Now, the way the park is laid out, Cedar Point, as I alluded to in my last major video, it's a weird layout. The way it's laid out is you basically just had the midway for a very long time, and then you had a ferry boat that took you back to the Old West area, to the Frontier Town area. Frontier Town was an early addition to Cedar Point, but you could only get there by water. So you had to go all the way to the back of the park to get there. And then they added one road that was Frontier Trail, and then they added another road, the road that takes you right next to Breakers Hotel. So there was already a lot of additions. You had kind of a weird spot that you still have that was just a road that took you to Blue Streak. So there's a lot of weird spots to Cedar Point, but in order to really maximize your time at Cedar Point, you have to become a little bit familiar with this map and understand where the areas are in this park and the layout of it. So the very first spot I've already talked about is the main midway, and that's the spot right here that you first come into. When you walk in, you walk right under Gatekeeper and you pass the carousel, and then you have the sky ride right above you. That is the main midway. Now, this main midway is an area that's almost always entirely full, and it is the reason why I tell you not to go straight to Raptor in the mornings, because there are so many people on it in the mornings when they first come in. Now, the very next spot is the Valraven pathway. This pathway is actually quite new, although it includes the Blue Streak area, and Blue Streak is not new. Blue Streak has been around for quite a while, and that part of the pathway that takes you straight to Blue Streak, that's been there for a very long time. They updated that entire path and made it a big circle. It used to just be one pathway that took you to Blue Streak, and that pathway includes both Valraven and Blue Streak. The next spot is Gatekeeper pathway, and the Gatekeeper pathway is this square right next to Valraven. In that square, you're going around the Kitty Kingdom. You have an entrance to the beach. You have both Gatekeeper, Windseeker, and then two kids areas that square walkway goes entirely around. It also goes around the Coliseum. There are a lot of iconic buildings right in that area. I also think that's probably why it's been the last area to be updated in the park, because there are a lot of old historic buildings that they are afraid to touch. Next on our list of pathways is the boardwalk, and the boardwalk takes you all the way down the beach. Wow, that's a thick line, but you know what? We stand a thick thing. So that walkway goes straight down the beach. It is a great way to even get to the parking lot. The parking lot is right at the very end of it, so if you are out at night, you'll see at the end of most of my videos, I end my videos with a drink and some time on the beach, and then I walk down to the parking lot. So it's a nice little place to hang out, and that's where I like to hang out at the end of most of my days. Now, the boardwalk also gives you access to the Breakers Hotel and all that stuff too, which is awesome. This is apparently a contentious subject, but I call this next area the Magnum pathway. It may not be the Magnum pathway. Some people call it the Gemini pathway, apparently, but it's this walkway that takes you right past Magnum. It takes you past Power Tower. It takes you past Gemini. It takes you right next to Top Thrill Dragster also. So you can get into all of those things from that area. There are lots of rides there. Most of those rides are a little bit older rides slash Top Thrill Dragster, which, as we all know, is not open at this moment or for next year right now. The next part is Frontier Town, and Frontier Town I think is just kind of weird. It has a lot of meandering in it, and it does include also a little pathway back by Steel Vengeance that takes you all the way around. It also goes to Maverick, and then you also have Cedar Creek Mine Ride. There are lots of little paths right there kind of meandering and kind of the weirdest spot in Cedar Point. Again, though, that has a reason. It has a reason because you had to take the water to get to Frontier Town, and so that Frontier Town area was already built. It was already a circle. So when they added the rest of the pathways, they just added 2 pathways to the end of that circle. It makes sense historically, and that's what happened. Frontier Trail, like I said, was added. It was the next pathway after they added Frontier Town, and that Frontier Trail goes all the way down to where Rougarou is, right across from Millennium Force. So it's really right where the train station starts. That's where Frontier Trail ends up being. It goes all the way down, and so now, as you can see, we've basically completed our circuit, and the completion of our circuit is with the celebration stage area, and that includes Rougarou and Iron Dragon. It also includes Coaster's Restaurant, all of that, and now you have a circle, you have kind of a line off the circle, you have a circle at the end of the circle, and you have 2 circles down below, and then a big line that takes you down. You also have a little road that takes you out of the Magnum pathway and onto the boardwalk. So there are just a lot of random paths all the way around. But like I said, if you're gonna really know Cedar Point and figure out which way you need to go when you come into the park, you have to be somewhat familiar with what this map does. And quite honestly, to me, every time I've looked at a map of Cedar Point, it's never really helped me to figure out exactly where I was. I just kept walking until I found where I was going. And there, you know, like, that's where I can come in and kind of hopefully give a little bit more clarity. So hopefully this really terrible sketch here that you have in front of you will help you just a little bit to get a visual idea of what Cedar Point looks like. I will also say, I've mentioned it a couple times here too, the Cedar Point Marina. The entrance to the Cedar Point Marina is this little spot right here underneath Valraven. So you can check that out also if that's something that would help you. There are also some paths to Cedar Shores and inside Cedar Shores, but Cedar Shores is just more of a mess than I can comprehend. So just walk around Cedar Shores and you'll eventually find the things that you need, or I will show you specifically in a video, or you can check out my old videos about Cedar Shores if you need to get an idea of what's happening there. Now, you may be wondering, why is Trent shirtless? And gotta tell you, if you're wondering that, you're probably new around here. You know, I have lived with body image issues for long enough in my life that I've lived with body image issues for 10 people. So I've just decided not to live with them anymore. My body's not the way I want it to be yet. I do have, actually, I just got a workout bench downstairs and some new weights. So hopefully that'll be changing, because I tried to do Beachbody just recently, and you can look back on those shorts and they're just, I failed. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I failed real bad. Part of that was the burnout that I alluded to in the last video too. But regardless, whether it looks the way I want it to look or not, this is what I've got. And you know what? I'm gonna be okay with that. And not to mention, everyone should be okay with, you know, like, however you look. You're great the way you are. Anyway, let's talk about wardrobe at Cedar Point and the way that you need to dress. Obviously, there's no dress code at Cedar Point, but there is a weird weather clause at Cedar Point. Nobody ever gets normal weather at Cedar Point. Just in the Great Lakes region altogether, we have weird weather. 1 minute it may be incredibly hot, and the very next minute, you may be freezing to death. It's just the way things are when you live in this area. Don't expect that you're going to always know what it is. There's been a couple of times when I have walked out of the park to go change my shirt in the parking lot, or to be able to just find something a little bit cooler, or to buy a sweatshirt because I thought it was going to be really hot, and then I ended up needing to buy something by the end of the night because I was freezing cold. So both things have happened to me a couple different times at the theme parks. So you definitely got to be careful with the kinds of things that you decide to wear to Cedar Point. Always bring a sweater. Always bring some sort of a versatile shirt. Always bring a t-shirt, or just, you know, bring a button-up shirt that you can unbutton. Do something like that. Whatever you need to do, but make sure that you have a couple of different things to wear. You can take your shirt off in the park, and you can wear a bikini. I'm not sure what the rules are for a bikini. I think basically with a bikini you can wear whatever you want. However, I think you have to have bottoms on. So like, I don't think the top makes any difference if you want to wear like a bikini top. Bottoms you would have to have on. I know that's the way it is at Indiana Beach. I'm not entirely sure about Cedar Point. Of course, at the water park, whatever, pretty much whatever goes. As long as you're not naked, you're fine. Between the areas of the petting zoo and the water ride, you're fine to go around with your shirt off. But you are supposed to wear your shirt other places. That being said, that isn't always the rule. It is a crazy hot day, as you can see behind me here. And of course, like in lines this last year, a lot of people were taking shirts off or whatever you possibly could, whatever layers you had on, because it was so hot. Just depends on the day. I think probably the rules change a little bit based on how terrible the weather is at that moment. If you do decide to store your shirt someplace, or anything else on you, you can use lockers. However, I would say that lockers are the best deal if you just buy the all-day lockers. You can get lockers and then take them, basically you move with a different code each time to a different locker, and it's 10 bucks for all day long. Otherwise, you spend like $2 every time you put stuff in, and then you change your locker. So you could end up spending a lot of money on that, but 10 bucks for all day long, not really an issue at all. Oh, also, if you're playing the Not Your Normal Guy drinking game, this is the time where you can take a drink. Actually, don't play this game, because if you do, you will die. So don't play this. Don't play this drinking game. I implore you, don't play this drinking game. Of course, one place you can always wear a bikini or take your shirt off is Cedar Point Shores. And Cedar Point Shores is a great place to go visit. It has some incredible slides. It has some incredible like kids areas in particular. That's really the reason why I like it so much. All right, let's keep this thing going. I'm running low on batteries. I'm gonna have to do something about that soon here. Like I said, the kids areas are stellar, incredible. And then of course they also have 2 lazy rivers. They have a bar with like a swim up bar. I love that too. Of course I do. And then they also have a wave pool that is top notch. So definitely I love Cedar Point Shores, and you should definitely go check that out also. Everyone say hi to the hamster. Her name is Goldie. At this point, Shirtless Trent has become a meme. So you know what? Let's meme away. Do it for the meme, Trent. Like I said, tonight's gonna take a while. So we've got a little bit more wine to bolster us to keep going. Also, we be classy. Alright, so Fastlane and Fastlane Plus. Fastlane and Fastlane Plus are both options for you to get as an extra cost. It will give you access to rides that are much faster because you get the short line. However, you have to spend for Fastlane last year, I think it was about 120 bucks, and for Fastlane Plus, it ranged anywhere from like 150 bucks to 250, or I think it might have been $240. It was a pretty crazy cost in my estimation. And the more I looked at it, the more I started realizing if I'm going to do fast lane, I would rather take a day off of work and buy a hotel and stay in the park for an extra day, and I could do just as much for less cost. That way then I could see some of the shows. That way then I could do more rides, things like that. And instead you're spending $250 for something that's going to get you on rides faster with less of a line, but you're also going to spend a lot more money on that privilege of being able to cut in the line. So I guess it depends on how much it matters to you that you cut in line. Like, what's more important to you? Is the not waiting in line part the part that's the most important to you? Or is the part that's most important the riding every ride? Because I would venture to say that for most people, when it really comes down to it, what they're really wanting is to ride every ride. They don't like waiting in lines. So when you have both of them together, oh, I can ride every ride and I cannot wait in lines, that sounds really good to them. And yet you're sacrificing what could be a much more relaxing vacation if you just got a hotel and you were able to leave a little bit early in the day. Always get there at opening, but leave at noon and spend 3 hours on the beach, hang out, get a suntan, things like that. Obviously everybody's different, but for me, I think I would say forgo that fast lane. Now it did at the end of the year get a little bit cheaper. I think that's probably because you had to pay for fast lane and then you had to pay also for fright lane. So I think that's why it got cheaper. I have a feeling it's still going to be expensive next year. Something at least over $200. I could be wrong. I could be wrong about lots of these things, but that's my gut reaction. So I guess we'll see what happens. But tell me down in the comments, what do you think? Would you like to have fast lane, and what is it that you like about fast lane? Do you just like it to save time in the lines because you hate waiting in line, or are you just wanting to ride every ride? To me, I actually don't mind a long line, because a long line gives you a chance to talk with friends if friends are around. For me, I do a lot of social media stuff, or it gives me a chance to go buy a drink, and then I can finish up that drink in the hour-long line, and by the end of it, I'm feeling nice and I'm ready to keep riding. So, or I can also get a meal. That's another thing I like to do in line, is eat, now that we don't have to wear masks anymore. However, if you have fast lane does not work for every ride. First of all, there is no fast lane access whatsoever for Cedar Creek Mine Ride, Iron Dragon, or for Gemini. Although I did get fast lane access one time for Gemini. Also, for regular fast lane, it doesn't work for Millennium Force, Valraven, Maverick, or Steel Vengeance. However, if you have fast lane plus, again, you will not have access to Cedar Creek Mine Ride, Gemini, or Iron Dragon. Gemini is a little bit iffy, I'm not entirely sure. But you will have access to those other 4 rides that I mentioned, the big 4, the Millennium Force, Valraven, Maverick, and Steel Vengeance. So like I said, weigh those accordingly dependent upon what it is that you love about your Cedar Point vacation. It's Editing Trent here. There is one huge thing that I neglected to tell you guys in this video with my initial script, and that is that Cedar Point is going cashless this next year. Did want to make sure that I explain this to you guys. Now, I have a whole video from Kings Island on how to navigate the cashless system, and I'm assuming they will still be using the exact same thing that Kings Island has. So you can go check that out. I will link it above for you guys to see, or down in the description, one way or another. But that way then you can see what is actually going to be needed. But you do, if you bring cash into the parks, you do need to put them into a little machine in order to, you know, go buy food, get coffee while you're there, go to one of the bars. Sometimes the bars did still accept cash. It just kind of depends on the situation, but I wanted to make sure that I bring this up to you guys. You'll need to definitely plan for being cashless in the parks this next year, especially if generally you go to Cedar Point and you do use cash. You know, if that's pretty normal for you, then you'll definitely need that. So either be prepared with a debit card to use, or you can get your own debit card. Now, the cool thing with the debit card system, if you do take your own cash and get a debit card, is it doesn't cost you any extra money, and that debit card still is worth money outside of the parks. I have used my card from Kings Island several different places, and even in the video where I used it for Kings Island Winterfest this last year, I was able to use my debit card at gas stations and all kinds of different places. So it actually works better than the temporary debit card that I was given after I lost my debit card this last year. So definitely keep that in mind, that you are going to be under a cashless system at Cedar Point this next year. One thing that I absolutely love about Cedar Point is the restaurants. The restaurants are really fun just to go try different restaurants. They don't, I'm going to be completely honest here, Cedar Point does not have the best food. I'm excited about this new restaurant for Cedar Point. I've heard rumors of it maybe being something that's more chef-led, something like that. I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know if it's going to be that great or not. One thing I would really like to do this next year is try some of the restaurants in the, I have tried TGI Friday, but in the Hotel Breakers area, I would like to try a few additional restaurants, especially there's an Asian restaurant that I would really like to go try. There's another like Perkins or something like that there. I'd like to try that out also, just see what it's like, just because the hotel restaurants have been severely underrepresented on my channel, so I'd like just to go see them and see what they're like. There's also a restaurant on the marina that I've never tried. I'd like to try that. One thing I'm sad about for this year is our loss of Chickies and Pete's, because Chickies and Pete's, in my view, was delicious. But we still do have Chick-fil-A, and I love Chick-fil-A. I'm hoping the vegan/vegetarian restaurant will still be back this next year. There were several really good places to eat. There is also an all year and an all day meal plan that you can invest in. If you want to do the all day meal plan, you can eat all day, like every 2 hours, or you can get the all year meal plan and you can eat twice a day with 4 hours in between each meal. I still remember. I love the all year meal plan. I was able to get costs down to like $2.20 per meal. Last year I did some quick math this year, just to see what it actually was at. I lost track as I went through the year. Once I got it under like $7, I was like, I don't need to keep doing this. So it ended up being about $2 per meal for me on the meal plan, which actually seemed a little bit higher to me than I thought it might be, but it still was a great investment. You can also get a drink plan, and you can get an all-day drink plan or an all-year drink. I do think all-day meal or drink is not really worthwhile. It's not worthwhile for me at all. I did get all-day drinks 2 years ago, and I will tell you, you have to get, maybe 3 years ago. I will tell you, you have to get the paper cup option if you're really gonna have it be worthwhile. If you get the plastic cup, it is nice that you get a souvenir to take with you when you're done. but the souvenir cup means that you have to carry that souvenir constantly with you. If you get the paper cup option, just go get that filled up, get a new paper cup, throw it away when you're done, and then go get another one. Honestly, I don't know that that's any worse for the environment than buying a plastic cup and then ending up throwing that away by the end of the year also. So I don't know that I think it's probably a wash. At least the paper cups will dissolve away eventually. Now, I already mentioned some shows, and I love going to see shows at Cedar Point. The dueling pianos, the swell tones are awesome. The Monster Mash show, we had Lusty Lils again. I'm such a stan of Lusty Lils. It's ridiculous. Midnight Syndicate, there's a trivia show that we saw this last year. There's the fireworks that we had at Celebration Plaza, and we also had a parade. There are lots of different like Halloween type shows, and having all of these shows back this year was the first time that we actually had that entertainment stuff back, and hopefully we'll have more indoor shows from the very beginning. I'd love to see like a stunt spectacular kind of a show like they've had in the past. Also, maybe a drum, well, not just a drum corps like they had this year, but a couple of years ago, they had an incredible drum show for Halloweekends that was just fantastic. I'd love to see something like that back again. Every year though, I will say that Cedar Point has something new and exciting and fresh in their show lineup. I will also say it's not actually a show, but Forbidden Frontier is one of the best things I have gone to see, and they are all performers. I mean, they are performing a role for you as people in the Forbidden Frontier, and it is spectacular, especially if you have kids. It's also a great place to just go let the kids play, and it can be educational, or it can just be a place where they go play in the high ropes, and there's a good chance it will be both. If all they want is to go play in the high ropes, go let them play in the high ropes. There's a good chance at some point they'll come down and they'll want to go exploring, and then they can have some education about the way things were on the frontier. There's always a mystery. It's really exciting, and it's a fun thing to go see.
Here we are at Shuckerman Acres. I'm Otis Shuckerman, the owner. I have one farmhand. His name's Kennedy. He does no work around here at all.
I highly recommend that, especially if you have kids under the age of, 12, maybe 13, something like that. They will love every second of it. Now, you can take an entire week and just explore Northern Ohio. There's so much in the greater Sandusky area. I already mentioned that there are islands all over the place. Puddin Bay is a great place to go visit, and I went with my brother to Puddin Bay and some other friends this last year. It's an excellent place. It's so much fun. Driving a cart all around, and there were lots of little bars and restaurants all over, right on the water. Probably the closest thing in Ohio to a feeling of Hawaii, that kind of a feel. And it was an excellent place to go visit. But besides Puddin Bay, there's also Kelly's Island, there's South Bass Island. There are lots of little, the Jet Express will take you to the different islands. There are several different ones that you can go visit. There are lighthouses, there's wine tasting, there's lots of different stuff. You could easily make an extended week out of going to Cedar Point, especially if you stay at Hotel Breakers or another hotel right around. Or there was even a hotel on Port Clinton that I stayed at that was just incredible. And Port Clinton is a place where the Jet Express leaves from. So you could easily go just walk down the street from this hotel to the Jet Express, hop on Jet Express, have them take you to different islands, and then from the islands or from Port Clinton, you could take Jet Express also to Cedar Point. And then you'd have kind of a one-stop shop. Even in a video as in depth as this is, there's still more depth that you can get into about Cedar Point and its surrounding area. And you could easily end up, like I said, making this a week or even longer of a vacation for you and your family. Now, when it comes to schedule, unless you just study Cedar Point like crazy, or maybe you watch every video of mine and every other video of every other theme park YouTuber that you can find, you are gonna have problems with the schedule. Like, it's just, I go constantly. I make videos about Cedar Point. I understand Cedar Point pretty well, but there's still times when crowds elude me. You never know what the crowds are really going to do. The best piece of advice that I can say when it comes to crowds and what you should do with your schedule when you're in the park is try not to think like other people. This channel is called Not Your Normal Guy for a reason, because you gotta get your mind out of the normal pattern of what most people think. It is difficult to do, and it does take practice. So if you're not coming constantly, watching these videos and tips and tricks about Cedar Point is probably the best way for you to do that. So again, I'm going to encourage you, press that subscribe button if you haven't yet. Also, make a list for your family. Every single family is different. Make a list and prioritize what you are going to do. You're probably not going to get to ride every single ride at Cedar Point. I have yet to ride every ride at Cedar Point in one day. I've ridden all the roller coasters. I've ridden all of a certain type of ride, but I've never ridden every ride at Cedar Point. And see every show is pretty close to an impossibility. I don't even think if you had the perfect schedule that you could do that. So you have to figure out what your priority is. Maybe your priority is kids rides. Maybe your priority is shows. Maybe your priority is roller coasters, or maybe it's just the biggest thrills, whatever that means to you. Maybe your priority is water rides. Whatever it is, that's your priority, and set that up. Make sure that maybe each member of your family has one or two things that they really want to do, and you make sure to hit that thing, especially if you can only come one day for your family trip for that year. Also, don't always trust the app. I know the app will say lots of different things. Sometimes the app is higher, sometimes the app is lower, and I truly don't know what the actual trend of that is. So it's much better to be able to gauge how big the ride is based on what I tell you. Like when I show you the crowd and I go, okay, now we're going to actually time this, and it does take 45 minutes, or it does take 25 minutes, or whatever the amount of time is. That's a much better gauge for you. So the more you watch these videos and then you walk into lines and see how far out they are, you should have a gauge also of how long those lines really are going to be and whether or not you want to brave them. Overall, my biggest tip, honestly, is plan as many days at Cedar Point as you possibly can. That's why my recommendation is not to get Fastlane Plus. The only reason why I would think you should get Fastlane Plus or Fastlane in general would be if it is really important for you to ride every ride and you only have one day to do it in. If you have allotted only one day, maybe you have a day off of work but you have to go back the next day, definitely then get that Fastlane Plus, because then you'll be able to do more faster. But if the option is available for you to spend more days rather than more money for less days, I would definitely do do 3 days at the park and then don't get a fast lane plus. Just stand in an hour-long wait. That's okay. It's not a problem to wait. You have a cell phone. You could easily watch something, or you can talk with the people who are in your group. Most people don't go to theme parks by themselves. I'm weird in that way. I know it. Like I said, 3 days at the park is ideal. If you have 3 days, you can get a 2-day park hopper, if you want to call it park hopper, that will take you to both the water park and to the regular park. And you can work really easily then to just do whatever tickles your fancy at the time. Go into the water park and go get a drink at the poolside bar. Go ride as many roller coasters as you possibly can. Hang out on the beach for 2 hours. Go back to your hotel and take a nap for an hour. Whatever it is that you need to do during the day, do it. Make yourself feel as comfortable and as relaxed on your trip as possible. And the more days you allot for your trip, the more you will find that you can relax. You can take that wine tour. You can eat at that nice restaurant, or you can just walk around and people watch, or go see shows at Cedar Point. There are lots of options for you to do, but you can't do them unless you have the time to do them. My very last tip that I want to leave you guys with is for the end of the day. Don't leave. Just traffic sucks. Traffic sucks on your way out. Don't leave right away. The park closes and go out on the beach. Go hang out for a couple hours. A lot of times there's even a party going on there. There's people dancing. There's a prom happening out on the, I mean, not a real prom, but like just a whole bunch of people dancing as a special part of Cedar Point nights or something like that. There might even be fireworks happening out on the water. These are all things that you can take advantage of, even though you're not a part of the hotel. You do not have to be a part of the hotel to be able to take advantage of the beach that Cedar Point was made on. And that is the place, that boardwalk is the perfect place for you to go hang out. There are 2 different bars out there. You can go hang out at the surf lounge or just hang out on the beach. Sometimes there's a band playing. Sometimes the band is playing inside. And one of my favorite nights was when the dueling pianos was in the atrium of Hotel Breakers, and it was just so much fun. Let people stress out in traffic and get annoyed by the cars that are just everywhere. There's only 3 exits on your way out. It's hard to get out. Just let other people deal with that kind of stress. And instead, you go get a drink, you go get yourself some Starbucks, and just hang out on the beach and drink your drink. Have fun and enjoy your time and let yourself relax and listen to the waves at night. Sometimes you can watch the sunset. It's such a great time. And finally, remember that there are no bad days at Cedar Point. I mean, anything that's a normal day is not a bad day at Cedar Point. When someone gets hurt, like happened this last year, yes, that is a bad day for them. But if you have bad weather, if you have bad, if you have a bad experience with a worker, if you have a bad experience with a guest, you know, just let that roll off your back. There are no bad days at Cedar Point. Your favorite ride is broken down. There are no bad days at Cedar Point. Top Thrill Dragster is not coming back. There are no bad days at Cedar Point. You can find something, a lot of things that are really good at Cedar Point, no matter when you go or what the circumstances are. So thank you guys for joining me for this video. Like I said at the beginning, I know it was very long. I don't know yet how long it is, but I know it was very long. So let me know down in the comments what you think. And also, what do you need to know about Cedar Point so that you can plan your trip better? I will be buying tickets sometime soon here, and I'll take you through that process. Maybe even that'll be short. I'm not entirely sure, but I'll show you what that's like to buy tickets specifically for Cedar Point and for Cedar Shores, or for Hotel Breakers. So let me know what you think, and thank you guys for joining. Like I said, please press that like button. If you made it to this point in the video, you liked something, so please press that like button. This thing is going to take me a long time to edit, so please press that like button, and I will talk to you all later. Thank you so much for watching, and let's go!